hope everyone's staying safe, staying sane, staying home as much as possible while this pandemic hopefully passes soon. This is probably going to be a pretty short review. It's hard to say a whole lot about part one of a two-parter because it's generally a lot of setup. It's hard. Generally, it's best to reserve judgment until the whole story is told. So, which will be not only the story of these 2 episodes, but of the entire season with the finale next week. So, just talk about a few points. It's not really explained. I don't know that it's a mystery, but after the La Sirena comes through the transwarp conduit, bumpy ride, and of course Narek follows. They did offer an explanation for how he was still following them, even though Agnes had gotten rid of the tracker. They said he had extrapolated from their last known position and figured out he was going to that particular transwarp conduit, which, okay, I guess that works if we have to have Narek still in the story, which dramatically I understand, even if emotionally I'm like, oh, really? That guy? Can we just forget about him? Anyway, Soji, Narek plays a trick in his little tiny snakehead ship. He pretends to be wounded and dying. Soji is all for leaving him to his fate. Picard is firmly against that, and he orders Narek beamed aboard. He's not even pretending he's not the captain here. He is paying who hired Rios, so I guess he's in charge that way, but he's not even pretending that he's not giving orders on the bridge here. Of course, Narek doesn't get beamed over because he tries to kill them instead. But anyway, that sets up the basic moral dilemma, a little bit of foreshadowing for the bigger one later on about Soji and Picard discuss this explicitly later on in the episode. She wonders if it's okay to kill, or I suppose even let someone die to save yourself. In this early scene, now Picard, what he wanted to do was the right thing to do, the moral thing to do. I believe that, but honestly, I was with Soji a little bit. I understand her feelings. Of course, I have the benefit of knowing these are all fictional people, even a fictional terrible person like Narek. Anyway, enough about that. The Borg cube, comes through the conduit as well. That was a really great moment. I sort of thought that the Romulan fleet was going to be there and the cube was going to fight them. I seem to want to see Borg fighting Romulans, maybe next week, but as Rio said, that's unexpected. And then these orchids, I called them ships, but they're not really ships, they're sort of a defense system. They come, they knock out the power. It takes several to bring down the cube. The others take care of the La Sirena and Narek's tiny ship. This visual was beautiful. I don't know what to say other than I really, really like this. This was a really cool thing. And so, before going to the settlement of the sentence on Coppelius, is what Soji called it. They go to the Borg cube, which is down, and Picard wants to check on Elnor and Hugh. And Soji says, Hugh is my friend too. It was really sweet. It's a really good moment. Of course, they get there. Elnor is alive. He runs and hugs Picard. I guess Elnor is the guy who gives everybody hugs. Seven is there. Seven is the person who comes in, makes really cool entrances with one-liners. The deal sort of, and this might just be my lingering dissatisfaction with Hugh's death and the way they killed him off, but it feels kind of perfunctory, the way they dealt with it. We don't see Picard or even Soji hear about Hugh's death, just Picard and Seven talking about it later. And it, well, like that. The cube is partly operational. Their systems are able to come online, which is better than the La Serena, which is completely out of power. So Raffi and Rios are able to realize that, get the sensors up, and realize that the Romulan fleet is on their way, 218 warbirds. And that's kind of it for Seven in the Cube this week. Hopefully they'll have a bigger part to play in the finale. I assume so. Seven has been just amazing. I'm definitely not alone in hoping that one of the new Star Trek live action series that are in development might be a Famous Rangers show with Seven as the lead. That would be awesome. Anyway, they go to Coppelius. They meet various synths. I love the look of the synths. I love the look of the settlement, actually, but especially of the people, the synths. And I like the gold skin that I assume these are slightly older models from Soji and Daj, or maybe Soji and Daj were deliberately designed to look as human as possible for their respective missions. But I love the golden paint on their skin. Well, makeup, but their skin is clearly supposed to be really golden. And then Brent Spiner shows up, and I was surprised. I didn't pay attention to the credits the first time through because I missed his name. So that was a total surprise to me. He introduces himself as Alton Inigo Soong, the biological son of Dr. Soong, who created Data and Lauren before and everyone. I noticed that his initials spell AI Soong, so that's clever. And of course, I'm suspicious of this guy. I think we're supposed to be suspicious of this guy. He seems very folksy and accommodating, and you gotta feel that there's a twist coming. And I'm kind of hoping that they do the unexpected and there's not a twist, that he's who he appears to be. But he's very friendly. He rather expertly manipulates Agnes, preys on her guilt and her desire to keep working in synthetics to help him with his mind transfer. He builds synthetic bodies, and he clearly wants to transfer his mind into a synthetic body. He didn't say so, but you get the impression that he's elderly, that he might have a health problem. So, which brings me to Picard. Picard, as we know, has a terminal illness. They don't ever say the name, which I've forgotten the name they used in the alternate future in All Good Things. Immundatic, something like that syndrome, but basically he's got a brain condition and it's going to kill him. Another odd thing, when the Borg cube came through the conduit, Picard seemed to recognize them, was able to sense them. He kind of said, "Thank you for coming." and then passed out. And then he woke up and announced his condition to everybody. They are heavily foreshadowing that Picard is going to die. They've been doing that really since the beginning, but especially in this episode. And while a lot of this show seems to be about grief and death, and even the title of this episode refers to death, we know there's a second season. We know they're not going to get rid of Patrick Stewart, so they're not going to put Picard in a brand new synth body. They might, and this was my thought, that mind transfer thing is a gun waiting to go off. They might transfer Picard's mind into a synth body that looks exactly like Picard's body, so Patrick Stewart still, but is healthy, doesn't have the brain problem. But clearly somebody's mind is getting transferred. Anyway. Picard is dying. Sutra, I love Sutra. I know she's villainous, but she's immediately a more sympathetic villain than Narek or Russo have ever been, or even O. O has some gravitas that those other two lack. I think that's the actress whose name I know but have forgotten right at this minute. But it turns out that she can mind meld, which is a little dubious to me, to be honest, but also I'm willing to go with it. She mind melds with Agnes to get so we could explain this admonition, what it really is. I'm not sure how I would have got that information across, so could probably forgive it in the show. Anyway, it's not a warning. She says it was a promise. There's a higher form of synthetic life, more powerful, more technologically advanced, I assume, that once synths reach a threshold, they can, and they become a threat to organic life, or more accurately, organic life perceives them to be a threat and is ready to destroy them. The synths can call upon these beings and they will come and they will destroy the organic life. I'm getting heavy Battlestar Galactica things, a vibe from this. All this has happened before and all this will happen again. But anyway, so that's what the admonition about. It was never meant for organics. They suggest that's why people, all the Romulans, the Zhat Vash, were going insane. Narek shows up and they lock him up. I literally wrote in my notes, read it, Narek. Not a fan. I don't think he's compelling as a villain. I don't find his relationship with Soji compelling either. He kind of drags things down. Anyway, he shows up. They lock him away. Sutra shows that she's up to something. She comes and she breaks him out and presumably kills the poor synth lady, Saga. Names are real interesting here in this episode. There's Saga and her twin Arcana. There's Coppelius Station, which is from the original German Sandman story, which involved an automaton that was passed off as a human woman. There's... Sorry, dog. I talked about... He's barking at the thunder. I talked about Alton Soong's initials. Did I say Brent Spiner did a good job? Because Brent Spiner did a really good job. You could see how he and Patrick Stewart were really enjoying acting opposite each other. But anyway, the central conflict is Soji, the synths led by Sutra, and Soji. Soji struggles with this, but they want to call on these higher synthetic beings. The frequency, the subspace frequency they need was encoded in the admonition to come and save them, because the Romulans are 2 days away, coming to destroy them. Molly, you don't need out. And Romulans are 2 days away. As Sutra points out, the Federation has banned them as well, banned synthetic life as well. As she says, it's extermination in advance. So this is why Sutra works for me as a villain, because her position is understandable. You see where she's coming from, and she's not entirely wrong. Her course of action is wrong to become mass murderers, to commit a genocide, because I think that's what we're talking about, to commit genocide. But she's not wrong that synths are under threat and persecuted, and she's not wrong the Federation is not innocent in this. This show has really been shining a light on the Federation not being a perfect place, which I know some people really hate. I don't. I think it's a good thing. Picard does his passionate Picard speech where he says he promises to be a voice for them, to be their advocate, to talk to the Federation, that the Federation will listen to him. Soong steps up and says, no, they won't. They'd happened before. And honestly, that's hard to argue too. Picard, again, there's a little bit of arrogance here when he says, I will be your voice. They will listen to me. The synths, especially Sutra, despite her being secretly villainous and she murdered poor Saga, that has to be dealt with. If she seems perfectly capable of being their own voice. Picard, his heart is very much in the right place. He wants to do the right thing. He seems to think that he's the only one that he, words are failing me a little bit, that he can be their voice. It doesn't seem to occur to him that maybe he could be an ally, he could be an advocate, yes, but he shouldn't be the one speaking for them, making the decisions for them. Anyway. So, and Sutra says no, and Picard is told by Soji. Soji agrees with Sutra. She's conflicted about it. She talked about with Picard earlier. She's conflicted about killing to survive, but at the end she sides with Sutra. Issa Briones, if I'm mispronouncing that name, I'm sorry, had a good scene against herself as Soji and Sutra having a conversation. And so at the end, Picard is under house arrest. Agnes has agreed to work with Soong on his mind transfer thing. And so Picard, Soji has sided with her, with the other synths, and Picard is under house arrest. Raffi and Rios have gone back to the ship to try to get it working again, so they're free. Narek has escaped with Sutra's help and is running off to cause who knows what trouble. Romulans are coming. Hopefully the Federation is also coming. Clancy mentioned that last week. The cube is still in play. So I think we're going to get a big showdown next week. And that's pretty much it for plot. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. What else? more to say. I think any big final judgments have to wait till next week. I do know I enjoyed this episode a lot. When it ended, I was surprised. It engaged me. I was like, oh, it's over already? I want to see more. So, we'll have to wait and see what next week brings. I'm excited for the finale. I'm excited to see what happens. I'll hopefully talk more in depth about this next week. I want to talk about the season as a whole too. I don't know if I'll make a separate video for that or not, or do it next week. We'll have to see. Probably that'll depend on length. I'm trying to imitate my shirt. Anyway, stay safe. Things are scary right now. Take care of each other. Stay calm. And hopefully we'll all get through this. Until we see you again, live long and prosper. Can you hear my dog? Shh. Long and prosper.